Like, ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me.
Hey, this is Lefty with Un Bet, brought to you by Lefty's Logic, and I'm here with Chipa, and she's not gonna say hi when I call her out, and then I'm gonna look like a dummy, just sitting here like silent waiting.
I feel like this is the Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Angel. Hi, Angel. Is that what you wanted me to do? Hi, Lefty.
No, it's hi. It's hey, this is Lefty, blah blah blah, and I'm here with Chipa. Hey y'all.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
There you go.
Like you.
So we're here. We got boxing on ESPN on Friday because Saturday is a UFC pay-per-view, and they're both on ESPN on Friday and Saturday, and they're not trying to compete with one another. So what ends up happening is we get Friday night boxing.
Well, and just for the boxing fans, it's actually a lot of boxing this weekend, because for those of you who tune into Pro Box, there's boxing on Friday. They moved their Wednesday to Friday because Wednesday today is Valentine's Day. So we have the Pro Box on YouTube, and then Friday night boxing with ESPN.
Right. So Pro Box and ESPN are actually going to be running at the same time. Then you got the UFC pay-per-view on Saturday. And then Thursday there's another boxing event that's smaller, that's on DAZN, where Jojo Diaz is fighting. Thinking about laying a nice sweet couple of unit parlay going over Thursday and Friday's different boxing events, but we'll see. I don't know. It's just kind of thinking about it. But anyway, so we've got Abraham Nova against O'Shaquie Foster on Friday, and that's the main event. I think that could be a very good fight. And O'Shaquie Foster's actually coming over from Showtime, and his last fight, I believe, was at the end of last year, where he fought on DAZN against Eduardo Rocky Hernandez, which was a very good fight. Before that, he fought against Ray Vargas, who was trying to get a third belt in a third weight division. He ended up beating him. The video for that fight, the breakdown for that fight, I actually did almost exactly a year ago on the Vargas Foster fight. I can link that in the comments if you want. If you want to go back, there's going to be like more extensive, more technical breakdowns of O'Shaquie Foster on there and what he brings to the table. And yeah, so we're getting to the point where there's actually multiple videos on multiple fighters going across multiple fights over their career, where we can start to build an encyclopedia of sorts on these guys. And so that would be like kind of an interesting project for people to go back and watch, but I'll stop plugging myself now. But so Abraham Nova. So Chipa, what were your initial thoughts when you were doing your homework for this fight?
So this could be a banger, potentially. Their best fights are really good. The worst that can happen would be a repeat of Ortiz and Lopez.
That's the worst outcome of anybody.
Right. The worst that can happen would be a repeat. No. Nova is favored as a power puncher, you know. That's the big thing, is that everybody talks about his power on the boxing matches. They were talking about his power, except against, of course, Ramirez, which is his one loss, right? For Nova. I'm not sure though, the intensity that Foster brings to the match. Nova's gonna have to, he's gonna have to bring it, with Foster's intensity, that Hernandez fight, whoa, it was a good fight. I would almost call that one a fun fight a little bit. Almost. It was almost there. So for those of you that don't know, when we do our homework assignments, so to speak, and watch some of the past footage, there's fights that we watch because we're trying to score and see what our score is versus the judges. And then there's times where we're watching a fight because we know it's just going to be an all-out brawl. You're probably going to see someone spitting teeth at some point, and so, yeah, no, that Hernandez fight was almost there. So this fight, if nothing else, it's going to be exciting from a fan's perspective. If you look at the numbers, one of the commentaries that I seen had just brought out the main difference, which is that Nova has 70% knockout ratio or percentage, and then Foster has a 57% knockout percentage. But what that speaks to, it's not that Foster hasn't fought many fights. He's fought quite a bit. He can also go the distance, and he knows how to score. He knows how to score. That's what I hear. When I hear somebody has a lesser knockout percentage, that means that person knows how to score boxing points. So if it goes to decision, it's going to be, if it goes to decision, it'll be intense, because the other person who's used to knocking people out, they're not used to having to score the points. So it could be detrimental to Nova.
So my initial reaction was Foster has fought and beat the better competition.
Mm-hmm.
Nova, his best win is against Adam Lopez, who now has 5 losses.
Right.
The one time that he stepped up, that he fought somebody, dare I say, world class, was Robeisy Ramirez, who's a southpaw. He's a Cuban defect, and he's a multi-time. I think he's got 2 gold medals in the Olympics, and he lost his first fight, surprisingly, as a pro, and he just recently lost again last year. But that was a crazy fight, and so Robeisy Ramirez has world-class skills, and Nova didn't make it past 5 rounds.
Right.
So once again, we're running into a position where Nova's Puerto Rican, and we got to do what we got to do. So
listen here. I mean, not only do you reject the Puerto Rican food, but you reject our boxers as well. Et tu, Brute?
Right. I mean, so yeah, like the book on Nova, he made a lot of his hay as a professional during the pandemic. While things were closed down, he fought 3 times. ESPN featured him a lot. He comes to the ring with the mascot of himself, and basically he went 10 rounds with Adam Lopez, who's a good fighter, not great by any means, but like I said, He's got 5 losses.
Yeah.
And
well, I don't like I really don't like the cocky fighters anyway. That tends to be my stance. But at the same time, you got people pushing numbers. My thing is, I believe that Foster's skill will it's going to speak for itself. It's going to override anything Nova think, any brute force that Nova thinks that he can bring to the match. As long as Foster's doing what he needs to do, Foster's still looking at walking away with it.
Yeah, so on this fight, Foster's a 9-1 favorite. Abraham Nova is about a 5.5 to 1 dog. Vegas thinks that this fight is going to go 12. They got the over at 10.5, and you're paying a premium on that at -230. So even if you hit the over under, you got to lay down $230 to still win 100. And 10.5 just isn't 10 rounds. It's halfway through the 11th.
Right.
So what they're telling you is Foster's probably going to win a decision. You're getting plus money if you go Foster by KO. One of my reactions when I did the homework for this fight was they go about things in a similar way. I just think Foster has more to his game. I think his defense is better. His hand placement is better. Even if his hands are low at times, he brings them back up in the pocket for the most part. Both of them can stand to pivot a little bit more rather than hit their lateral movement. By lateral movement, I mean shuffling around the outskirts of the ring by the ropes, a la Ortiz. And so, but
shout out to Ortiz for that.
Yeah. And Foster, he can come forward, he could go backward, he could counterpunch. He's just got a lot to his game, and I believe that Nova has a similar style, but he sometimes leaves the center line exposed.
He does.
He's not bladed in his stance, which is, the center line comment I just made. He and by what we mean by being bladed is how square your shoulders are when you're in your stance, right? The less square that your shoulders are, the less of a target that you present to your opponent, and the more that they have to commit to whatever offense that they're trying to bring to get to score enough points to win the fight. And so Foster's been 12 rounds a few times. He's gone the distance a bunch of times. Abraham Nova has been 10 rounds just twice. From what I'm seeing, he has not been 12 yet in his career, and he's only been 10 3 times.
Right.
So what you're going to see is guys with similar styles, and in order for Nova to have a chance in this fight, he has to do things that he's not comfortable with, because I think Foster is better at Nova's style than Nova is.
Right.
And what I expect to see Foster do is eventually come forward in the last 4 or 5 rounds whenever he feels that Nova is starting to lose his wind a little bit, because remember, he hasn't been 12 yet. And so I expect Foster to come forward more, push him back, start working. Something that I would expect Foster to do is you've got to work the body early, right?
Yeah.
And then when Nova comes to respond, then that's when you counter over that low left hand that he's going to have. And from what I'm seeing, both guys are similar sizes, or at least they're listed as similar sizes. Nova's used to being the taller, longer guy in every fight that he's in. And he's going to expect to be safe at certain distances and certain ranges that he's not going to be safe for in this fight. So he's going to think that the mid to outer range, he could leave his lead hand down, and Foster's basically going to prove to him that, hey, you're not safe anywhere unless you completely disengage. I expect Nova's punch output to not be as the fight goes, his punch output is going to drop. I expect him to conserve energy early to try to make it the 12-round distance, so that way he can last, but that's going to drag his punch output low. if he goes even, like the first 6 rounds, if he wins 3 of them, I'll be very surprised. But he has to try to win most of the early rounds because he's got to expect that Foster's going to bring it the second half of the fight.
Right.
So, okay, betting standpoint, this is tough because I know what bet I like to do, but I don't know if they're going to come out with it. But if they do, I'm going to jump all over it, and that's going to be Foster 7 through 12 with the decision. If that doesn't happen, then I'll probably try to bet on the over and then parlay it with another fight, probably the co-main event, and we're just gonna have to piece together something that isn't gonna be as risky or lay a ton of juice on. Like, that's what it's gonna be, right? So my pick is Foster. If I have to bet the over, I will. I really don't see Foster knocking him out. I really don't see that.
But do you think there's a chance that Nova will do?
That Nova will win?
Yeah, no, knock him out. Knock out Foster.
No.
No.
I don't see that at all. Like, he's fought bigger punchers than Nova. And if Nova goes in there trying to outbox Foster, that's a mistake. So Nova just has to fight in a style that he's not used to fighting for him to have a chance. And I don't see that happening at all. I might sprinkle on a Foster by knockout. And by sprinkle, I mean a couple of units, nothing too crazy in relation to our bank.
And just a dash.
Just a
dash will do.
Just a little bit, like that dude.
Yeah.
So that's what I would look at. So essentially, Foster should win this fight, and it's up to us to be able to shorten those odds in a safe way that we don't have to pay a premium to get a low amount in profit. And I'm going to look at the co-main event for that. I'm favoring the favorite, but that fight should be more on even terms, and that's got to be, from what I'm seeing on the co-main event, he's fighting against a taller guy, and the favorite is a shorter guy, and he comes with looping punches. And if that taller guy pulls out and doesn't pivot and he just pulls out with his hands down, that guy should be able to, the favorite should be able to follow him out and continue with his punches. And that's probably what's going to win him the fight. I'm probably going to go that way and get my even money and just live with it. And that's going to be my prediction for the co-main event. But to be honest, neither guy has had a ton of fights that are televised. So there's limited footage available that's relevant.
That's right.
So
yeah, sometimes you just have to watch the highlights.
Yeah. And then Shushu Carrington is going to be probably the first fight on the main card. And Shushu I'm going to be looking at, is he sitting down on his shots? And is he improving fight to fight? So earlier, he was just trying to get off with speed, overwhelm the other guy. Now I want to see him pick his shots better, download information a little bit more, and then when he sees the opening, sit down on something and put him out. I want to see if Carrington takes that next step, and we're going to see. I expect a good event. I expect you know, it's boxing on a Friday, so I'm cool either way. Prediction is it's probably going to be the co-main event, the favorite for that fight, and then O'Shaquie Foster, and then we'll sprinkle on a knockout, and then just live with the results. Unless that one particular bet comes through, which is the 7 through 12 / decision for Foster, then I'll jump all over that. But I can't even bank on that anymore because they might have took it away because I just kept. I mean, I've been hammering that for like 2 years. So
it's your fault.
Yeah. So anyway, Chief, what do you got for me?
What do you mean?
So, what are your final thoughts on the review on the
fight? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. These are two boxers that I never really, you know, I used to watch boxing. I'm definitely a fan, but since you and I have been engaging more, there's people that were always on my radar. These were two that I didn't realize. I heard of Foster, never really watched Nova up until I did the homework, which is why I was more obsessed with watching Nova and getting the Nova fights in. But ultimately, I think that Foster can definitely walk away with it. My first impression was Foster by decision. I wouldn't be able to be so skilled as to call like you do which round. You know, if it's going to be a knockout 7 to 12, blah blah blah, you know, that I'm not big on the betting information, but the Foster for sure, he's a dog. He's got some intensity. He's a technician, you know, he's very tech his skills are on point, very practiced, very well placed. So I agree. You know, I think the only thing that Nova might have going for him is power, but that you can't just come in with power. You have to come in with power and skill, you know. So even if he was able to have that power in the ring, Foster is basically you know, he has a chin for it. So he's not just gonna drop, you know. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
So one last final thought. You have our predictions, you have our analysis. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you
that was highly important. Highly important.
And if you disagree, that's, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. You know, one thing that I'll always fall back on is facts, right? I don't let my heart get caught up in whatever. I mean, if Nova loses this fight, then this channel that has 2 Puerto Ricans on it is going to be 3-0 betting against Puerto Ricans. And so we do what we got to do. And, you know, hey, if you comment, I'll respond. But more than likely, you know, there's always going to be statistical backing for whatever my view is, whether I agree or disagree, right? So we had a commenter that disagreed that Ortiz got fatigued, and I'm like, well, I mean, can I outright prove that he was fatigued or wasn't fatigued? We don't know. Like, we're not him, and we're not in his corner. However, all 3 judges, right? And I disagree wholeheartedly with the 117-111 brought out by Weisfeld. However, you find out about the judges ahead of time.
Yeah.
How much ahead of time probably varies. I mean, I don't know. I'm not part of the Las Vegas State Commission, right? But you find out about the officials ahead of time, so you knew who the referee was going to be. You knew who the judges were. Steve Weisfeld spent a few years as a guest judge on HBO Boxing, And one thing that you always seen with the fights that he, I mean, I'm going to say judged, but when he would be judging as a guest on HBO, basically, because the HBO judges they're not part of the event. They're not, they're just there for the viewers, not to score the fight that counts toward the decision. But he was and is a real judge. And if you listen to his comments in between rounds, he's always favoring the aggressor. Always. Yes. Even more so than Harold Letterman was.
Right.
So if his team is doing his homework, at least one of those judges is going to favor the guy pressing the fight and throwing punches. Now, you don't have to, make the fight against Lopez. But if you're throwing punches and still boxing responsibly, he's probably going to give you rounds. But That's right. You didn't. And the information is out there.
Well, and to your point, not only was he not the aggressor, but you can say Ortiz wasn't fatigued. That's fine. You can argue that point. My thing is, what's the truth after that, right? If Ortiz wasn't fatigued, did he just choose to take the last 3 rounds off? Even if you think you have the fight, you don't take the last 3 rounds off. Like, that's like you said, boxing responsibly, right? So even if you think you have it in the bag, your corner saying, you got this, like, you still have to get out there for at least another round and a half and put in some work to seal the deal. You can't just be off on the last 3 rounds and expect to walk away with it. So tomato. You say he wasn't fatigued and he outboxed Lopez. I say he was either on vacation or he was tired, one or the other. And neither one is a good look in the boxing ring.
I mean, at the end of the day, whether he was fatigued or not, on all 3 judges' scorecards, Steve Weisfeld withstanding, he lost the last 3 rounds.
Period.
10, 11, 12. He lost the championship rounds, which he did against Lomachenko.
That's
However,
right.
And even with all that, from a basic math standpoint, in a 12-round fight where there's no knockdowns, you need to win 7 rounds to win the fight. If you get fatigued or not fatigued or whatever happens, if you lose the last 3 rounds, and we could argue about if he was fatigued or not fatigued all day, then the only way you win that fight is if you win 7 of the first 9. That's just basic math.
Yeah.
And you really think, if you're Ortiz, do you really think that they're going to give you the first 7 of the first 9 rounds on ESPN, on the A-Sides network, during Super Bowl weekend, when they've been hyping him up and they got him out there like Barley and Bain, Barley and who's the circus?
Barnum and Bailey.
Them fools. And you got them. Come on, man. Like, you'd be lucky you'd be lucky if you won 5 of the first 9, no matter what you did.
That's right.
Which is exactly what happened.
Right.
That's exactly what happened. They scored at 7-5.
That's right. Yeah.
They gave you 5 of the first 9 rounds. Even if you deserve to win 7 of the first 9, you're not going to get that.
Right.
So, like, if you're Ortiz, you cannot give them any reason to rob you. No reason. You have to, like, Canelo against Bivol, right? The judges gave Canelo the first 4 rounds. And he was the A side. And Bivol boxed the chonies off that man all night. And they still gave him the first 4 rounds. So all he had, like in that instance, when you're dealing with boxing and boxing judging and politics, you're talking about, all Canelo has to do is win 2 of the last 8 to get a draw. This is a similar this is almost, it's not as egregious, I don't think, but it's a similar type situation.
Right.
If Bivol takes, you know, 1.5 rounds off, it's a draw. And if Canelo knocks him down once and wins 1 round, he wins the fight.
Yeah.
So you can't give them any reason. You can't leave any doubt if you're Ortiz. You got to go in there and handle your business. And you can't complain that you got robbed when you're throwing the same amount of punches and landing the same amount of punches as the other guy when the other guy hits harder and he's making the fight.
That's right.
You can't do it.
Right.
And anybody that instructed him in his corner, because now we can't even hear corners anymore because they got commercials.
Right.
So you can't even listen to what the corner's saying. But anybody who told him any different than what we're telling you, Ortiz needs to lose whoever that is in his corner.
That's
whoever
right.
gave him that advice.
That's right.
Because you can't claim ignorance when you're in the boxing game. This is your career, and you're supposed to know this stuff.
That's right.
So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that Ortiz got robbed. Now, if you went in there and beat up Lopez the whole fight and he got robbed and he lost the fight when he, you know, doubled him in CompuBox stats, now we got a conversation, but that's not what that was.
That's not.
So I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Well, we appreciate the comments, though. we appreciate, no, I mean, we're joking, but not joking. You know, we appreciate the support, you know, the views, you know, you had to watch it in order to even comment on it. So thank you for the views. Thank you for the support. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. You know, we embrace your opinion. At the same time, we reserve the right to disagree, and that's just it. You know, when we come on to the channel having watched, you know, anywhere from 8 to 12 matches, you know, 4 or 5 of them per player, you know what I'm saying, or per boxer. So it's not that we don't choose to favor one side because they're Puerto Rican or because of whatever. We choose to favor who we favor based on the stats and technical